Good evening, everybody. Hope you're all having a happy September. I know it's already September 5th, but I always consider this, being the recently graduated student that I am, the beginning of fall already. So work is already continuing and carrying on. We took a little bit of a break over the last month because we did a lot of traveling and a lot of different reforms over at the organization, but we continue, of course, to fight for the separation between religion and government and for the rights of atheists nationwide. So glad to be back on camera, and we already are working on a new lineup of guests to really kickstart the streaming series once again. We're nearly at the 2-year mark, and we create more content, and we're getting better and better at this thanks to the support from all of you. So not only do we at Atheists for Liberty, though, fight for Enlightenment values, but we seek to learn from the greatest minds of the 21st century. And not only do we interview great minds from the outside, we also like to interview plenty of those great minds that work day to day to make this organization great. And it's going to be a little bit of a different episode. There's already a bunch of dings in my background, and there's a reason for that. It's because we have some of those very people working to make this organization better. So want to, of course, list our member of the week. That is going to be Carrie Martell, guys. So be like Carrie today and become a member of Atheists for Liberty at atheistsforliberty.org. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we do what we can every single day to fight for free speech, free thinking, and freedom for all. We're also doing a donor match that's going on between now and the end of the year. And so if you become a member, that's going to be matched and doubled. So really appreciate all of you for continuously signing up, renewing, some of you upgrading your memberships, or just giving donations. We have all those links in the description of this video below, either if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube or somewhere else. So really appreciate all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest for this evening, and let's get started. So Matthew Hebb is the Vice President of Atheists for Liberty. Matthew holds a master's in public policy from Liberty University, a bachelor's of political science and pre-law from the University of Central Florida, and is the state director for a nonpartisan issue-based group in Idaho. He works on an effort to ensure equal constitutional rights for victims of crime, a passion Matthew has spent the last 5 years both in Mississippi and North Carolina advocating for professionally. Matthews also served in the administration of former North Carolina Governor Pat McCrory, and spent time as the business service coordinator for the National Heritage Program in the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. In his extensive political campaign experience, he was a campaign manager for the Hunter Murphy Court of Appeals campaign, and was a field director for the Connect NC bond campaign. He even owned North Carolina's first 24-hour coffee shop. Additionally, Matthew has held several positions within the Young Republican National Federation, including finance director and education committee chair. He's also served as the national committeeman for the Mississippi Federation and the chairman of the North Carolina Federation of Young Republicans. He served on the North Carolina Zoological Park Council from 2016 to 2021, as well as the North Carolina Museum of National Sciences Advocacy Board from 2016 to 2020. And Matthew is a new resident of Boise, Idaho, where he lives with two awesome boxers and plenty of other great people from that community too. Matthew, Mr. VP.
And our Idaho State Director, Kayla Saunders.
That's why I mentioned at the end, even more great people in Idaho. And the list is already continuing to grow. We're getting more Idaho members. There's more people that want to do things in Idaho. Basically, if we had to have an unofficial second headquarters, it would be
we're the Western headquarters.
Yes. I see you already got your office set up there with the AFL logo in the background. So you're already prepared for this whole thing.
Yes, I try, Once in a while I get it right, okay? Thanks for having me on, Thomas, seriously. And you didn't have to read my whole bio, sir.
It's very long, but for good reason, because you've done a lot. And that's one of the reasons why I want to talk to you, because we're doing a lot of great things at AFL. We're continuing to better our content here. And often you and I are in plenty of these private conversations trying to do what we can to better it. But too often we think, we have to look for somebody on the exterior. We have to look for some kind of scientist or some kind of expert, all amazing people. By the way, everybody check out our past episodes. But we have a lot of amazing people with a lot of amazing stories to tell here in our own organization. And so I'm very thrilled to have you on, and I think it's going to be a very fun exchange.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, it is very much a challenge. I mean, you and I have worked together on this a bunch, that there's so many great people who want to come on this stream, but it's often a matter of getting the time that they can be on. We want to keep this consistent. We want to do this at the same time, but we got to also make sure that somebody's available at this
Mhm.
particular time on a Tuesday.
Yeah,
That being
usually me.
that being said, I do think that it's a valuable thing for us to have internal conversations externally, share a little bit of what's going on behind the scenes here. But yes, I've done a lot of different interesting things, and I've been in Idaho now for about a year and a half. And so I now work with Marcy's Law here in Idaho. And one thing that wasn't mentioned in there is, doing have this unbridled strategies thing here. That is my current consulting firm. So.
Yeah, we're going to have to work on updating the bio on the website now because of that. I
What
realized,
you're
like,
saying is I have more work to do. Go on, continue.
yes, yes, but you have a very nice setup. Like when we spoke yesterday, you showed me the new office background that's now public here for everybody to see. It looks very nice, and
And that is in no small part thanks to the expertise of our communications director, Carolina, who helped pick out all of this equipment and make sure that it looked good and works well. So,
oh, she's awesome. Yeah, a lot of the backgrounds that we have for all the different postings, the videos, the thumbnails, a lot of it is thanks to Carolina and her
yeah,
designs.
no, I mean, it's so many members of our team.
Mhm.
It's like Max was taking the time to make sure he pushed out the graphic while our friend Carolina is busy fighting a wildfire in California, because that's the kind of thing our members do.
Mhm.
And I think it's incredibly important that we start highlighting the fact that Atheists for Liberty is a broad-based group with a lot of people who do a lot of very interesting things.
Yes.
We have people that work in legislatures that are members of ours. We have people that work in every aspect of the economy, cybersecurity. I mean, we have some really interesting people, and I think it's
Mhm.
very important for people to see that this isn't just a home for people who are atheists that are liberty minded. It's also a really good home to meet people who are like minded in various professions and have interesting connections and networks. So.
We've literally helped each other's careers, advanced each other in so many different respects, and have been there for each other personally
Mhm.
due to us just meeting each other at conferences and at events.
Oh, the
Um,
conferences. Oh,
that
so
that's
many.
a, that's question number one. That's what exactly I'm going to get into, because I already know that you'll have a few interesting stories to tell, and I can either back you up with a few of those stories or state a few myself. We've gone to CPAC now this year. You and me. We worked hard at that booth there. We went to Freedom Fest this year. You've been to a few other conferences too. So have I.
Mhm.
Advocating for AFL and advancing the cause. And as we as professionals like to advance that cause offline, we get some very interesting responses. So, we go to many of these conferences to advance the goals of the org, but like me, you get a lot of weird answers and have a lot of odd stories to tell. So, what is it like in your view to talk about atheism at these sorts of places, and do any particular experiences stand out?
I think it depends. I'll give you an example. I was just at a conference and had a lot of people who were intrigued by the very existence of us, because this was kind of I wasn't there officially on behalf of AFL, but I bring AFL up everywhere I go. I was there for work. But one of the things that you find out is people don't even know something like this exists. They assume that every atheist organization out there is just some extension of the woke movement. And then when you try to explain to them, it's like, no, not this one.
Not
They're
us.
like, oh, well, then maybe I'll actually check it out, because you find out that some of them are, in fact, secular or at least supportive of the mission. I would say it definitely depends on the conference. It definitely depends on the crew. I'll give an example. Freedom Fest, I have no other way to say it. It's like sort of like a love-in. They all love us. Like, everybody's nice.
Mhm.
You're gonna run into like one or two jerks at anything, but I mean, by and large, like when you go to Freedom Fest, it's like, oh, do you believe in liberty? And you like explain, well, yes, obviously. In fact, it's critical to our mission as an organization that liberty is preserved.
Mhm.
But you also find out that like they're happy you're there. They want to know what you're doing. And
Mhm.
even if they're not interested in joining, although many people have joined from Freedom Fest, I mean, we've met so much of the best talent we have through
We still
Freedom
have to
Fest.
sort through all the applications and messages from people that
And
we
if
just
any
met
of you who
at
have
one event.
filled out one that you that is watching this right now, we're working our way through them.
Yes.
We are a volunteer operation. We're doing the best that we can. But we do need you. So, and if
Mhm.
you are still interested and you're listening to this and you have never filled one out, please go to our website and you actually have the opportunity to fill something out on there, or if you want to help me out, or just like, you know, have an excuse to yell at me. Like, I mean, you could do that too. You know, it's up to you.
Matthew is very used to seeing some of the most absurd people, but also some of the most passionate people in these
Oh,
conversations.
absolutely. But you know, we get some interesting questions. One of them always, you know, we always get this. There's a couple things we always get asked, and you've heard them too. It's like, why do you not call it agnostics for liberty? It's like,
That's at every conference we go to, Freedom Fest, CPAC, you always
and
get
the
like,
answer to that question is there. It's multifaceted. I have my own answer for
yeah,
it. Thomas has his. You know, before somebody goes in the comments and says, "Well, why do you call it?" You know,
yeah,
it's because, you know, we are an atheist organization and we are trying to normalize that term. And you can't normalize something by not using it. It's the same idea as saying liberty. Like, I mean, it may sound kind of trite to most people that are watching us right now. Be like, liberty? Who doesn't, you know, how is
mhm,
liberty offensive? I'm like, well, you haven't been to some of the communities I've been to. Liberty is an outside concept for some of those folks.
yeah,
And also remember, you know, we're attempting to wake up atheists to liberty. It's not just the other way around. It's not something we talk an awful lot about on the stream, but it's something that we need to, you know, make sure gets out there. Is that there are atheists who've seen the movement die and they kind of don't really know what to say about it. And they're like, man, we used to just fight for constitutional rights back in the day. And now it's all this weird woke stuff. And I'm not really here for it, but I don't, you know, but it's important to have atheist organizations. So I still watch it. Thing is we're out here to tell atheists who are in the movement, who are disaffected, including literally some of our board of advisors literally came to the liberty movement
yeah,
because of the way that the atheist movement soured.
yeah,
But to tell atheists out there that if you're like not here for it with some of the stuff you're watching, there is another way.
there is.
And another thing that we get, and also too, you know, and I would also point out, many of our membership is agnostic. I would qualify myself as an agnostic atheist. Like,
Yes.
you know, always open to evidence, always
And
open
some
to
people who
listening.
just say they're agnostic. They don't want to use
I
the
don't feel like
internet.
it's valid for me to say I know something that I can't know. Um, but that being said, that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with people who do. I'm not here to judge them. I'm just simply saying I don't agree with them.
Right.
But the point is that this is to further this particular philosophy, and it's like that's where our naming comes from. Another common comment we get is you know, well, why are you here? Like, we get that a lot, believe it or not. You know, I mean, you believe this, Thomas, you're there, but and a lot of it is like, for example, CPAC. We get a lot of it at CPAC. Like, why are you here? And it's like, because you need to know that not every. First of all, you're going into a room like CPAC, and it has everything from, you know, conservatives and theocrats to, you know, genuine liberty minded and liberty loving people, populists. There are all sorts of people. Um, and my thing is, outside of the theocrats, which, you know, they all know that they all know we disagree with each other, so it's no news. But it's for everybody else where it's saying, well, I want you to know that we can be friends. I want you to know that, you know, I've knocked doors for conservative candidates in 16 states, at least. Literally, including some that I disagree with on 20% of issues. That's kind of my rule. I follow the old 80-20 rule. But my point is saying it's like, but I'm doing that. I'm not religious. Are we friends or are we not friends?
Yeah.
Are we working together or are we not working together? And the thing is, I think it's important for us to be at places like CPAC because they need to understand that there are people who believe in, I'm going to use this generically, but limited government. We'll just use limited government as a
Mhm.
way of putting it. That may not come at it from a religious perspective. That, you know, I'll use the example on the right, you know, on the Republican Party, you know, in the Republican Party, there's this constant browbeating of Judeo-Christian values, which I don't even know what that means. But putting that aside for a moment, it's almost as though they forget that there are a vast number of people. Look at surveys that you've cited on here thousands of times. I mean, hundreds of times on the
Yeah.
stream, Thomas. Clearly, a vast majority of even their own people aren't religious,
Yeah.
or they vaguely claim to be.
You and I, being involved in politics for so long, have just seen how much of a game it is. How much of a game it is to just say the specific talking points here and there, where we all know when we all go out to the bar after to chill, or we see all the consultants, or we see all the media people, all the Fox News or Newsmax or OAN employees talk. We all know that they're really in line with us on a bunch of these things. So they know
You
we
bring
make
up a great
sense.
point. I don't want to call out which network it was, but you and I spoke to a senior executive at one of those networks
Mhm.
extensively and said, I love what you're doing. I would love to have you on, but I've got to figure out how I can pull that off without losing everybody, losing
The base.
the base, and like, or I think what you're doing is correct, but we have to be careful here. And I'm like, why?
Yeah. If you
So,
do it, you're not going to lose your audience. I can guarantee it.
it's very funny how quickly people will stand on the soapbox for free speech until it becomes slightly inconvenient.
Yes.
And
The
it used to be on the left. Everybody would, that was always one of my sympathy points back in the day for people who were on the political left, was that they were always the free speech purists. And I always would, that was one value that I and them always, we saw eye to eye. Like back in the 80s when they were trying to fight for video game censorship, and the left was the one saying, no, that's nonsense. You should be able to make what you want to make. Now the shoe's on the other foot, and everything's, speech is violence and all of this sort of nonsense you hear. And the problem is where the Republicans and the right and right libertarians all kind of picked up the mantle for free speech for a time there. Now you're starting to see them roll it back a little bit, because they're like, well, if you're going to start talking about some of these things, you need to consider, God and the Bible and stuff like that. And that's more important than, we have to defeat the woke, and maybe we need a little religion to defeat the woke. And that's a nonsense concept to me.
completely. To ask every secular, like especially on the right, ask every secular right-wing politician in Europe, right? People that have not been woke for decades, people that are not seeing religions fall and wokenesses rise, be connected to one another. Yeah, ask any of them or tell any of them that they're going to laugh in your face. I'll state one CPAC story. This was before you came with us to CPAC. We had a I believe he was an Austrian member of the European Parliament, come up to our booth and just laugh at the amount of religious doctrine that he's seen so in line with politics. It's a completely foreign concept to him, and he's not some woke person. He's not somebody way to the left of conservatives because that's Europe, and Europe is more left wing than America. No, this is somebody who was fairly populist on a bunch of different right wing related issues, in line with MAGA, even on a bunch of different grounds. This wasn't even some person that would be called a rhino by American standards. And even he was going that this is a very weird concept to see here in the United States, where I, as an atheist, they applaud me for all of my work, but a lot of them don't just happen to not know that I'm an atheist. And it's so weird.
And that's, again, circles back to the same point we made before. Why is it important for it to be called Atheists for Liberty?
Mm-hmm.
Because they need to see the good work, and they need to see people who are fighting the woke stuff, and they need to see people fighting for free speech and liberty. And this even means not just the separation of church and state, but fighting for the freedom to participate or not participate. And those are the things that will ensure I often say that the separation of church and state is as much to defend somebody like us as it is to defend any church. Because here's the thing, and this is a conversation I've had to have at so many conferences, because people say, well, don't you acknowledge the fact that this country was founded? We can get into the weeds on that. I don't agree. There's some truth, some not truth to a lot of things that get said about it.
Right.
But what I think is critical for us to note is that this notion that religious liberty is something that is really just pertains to Christians, and it's really just code words for theocrats to say, oh, I want religious liberty. What really means is I really want to have religion and government. No, you don't. Because it's then that somebody decides what version of your religion is the right one.
It's open season then. It's open season against you, Mr. Christian here, Mr. Jew there, Mr. Muslim
And
there,
some of my
depending on your
dearest,
denomination.
most of my dearest friends are believers, you know, and that's
Mhm.
fine. But I don't want them being told what they can believe. Like,
Yeah.
I personally don't, but I also at the same time have an immense amount of respect for the, you know, cultural and religious differences my friends have. I don't want anybody browbeating them with anybody else's thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly. It's why like, I was about to say that, it's very important that we have other people in AFL work very hard to keep this organization great. And in many cases, I've been this kind of public persona on the camera here that a lot of people know me with the flag and everything. But there's a reason why with all these videos, we have the American flag in the background, because we mixed our fight for atheist
I
normalcy
actually
as
did,
well
but
as
it
public
fell
country.
over. I had an America and an Idaho flag, but I couldn't fit it on the table. I'm still working this
I was about
background.
to say it does look like that kind of office where it would be like a like a senator's office where you got the two flag stands.
Hold up. I do still have it here, so I can prove that it exists. See, we got
I gotta
Idaho,
have one for New York.
and then there's America. But the thing is that it's like people say, well, why would you show up to a place like CPAC? You know, there's a lot of super conservatives there. They hate you, and I'm like, no, I don't think they know me.
Yeah.
Now, some of them won't take the choice or chance to know me, but the ones that do, it's important for me to tell them about us and explain to them why. You know, one of the common lines I would get from people is like, well, you understand you live in a Christian nation.
Mhm.
I'm like, we live in a Christian barely dominated nation that is tolerant of all people
Yes.
and
We live in a
operates on
secular nation that happens to be filled with the majority of
that
Christians
it
at this time.
exactly, and that I was going to say that was established as a secular nation to protect the very people who believe and don't believe. But you have to have that conversation with those people. You know, you have to like actually have the conversation with like a CPAC type person, you know, your average run of the mill, good, well meaning person who just thinks that they're defending, you know, they think they're defending the American way. And in
Right.
many ways they are. But there's certain things that they miss. And if we're not there, there's no one to tell them, hey, you missed a spot, or this could come and bite you as much as it can bite me.
Mhm. And we wouldn't be at CPAC every year as well if we didn't get members from this event. Obviously, we want to be there to normalize
Where we found our
atheism
comms
there.
director.
We found our comms director there. We found a
By
ton of new
chance.
people there from all these different events that we go to who are non-believers.
Mhm.
If there wasn't a demand for us to be at these places, we wouldn't be there in the first place, guys. You know, there are people in the atheist community, or what remains of it, that do ask why we go to these places. There's a reason why. It's not that we're trying to, spread conservatism into atheism or spread libertarianism, blah blah blah. There is a genuine demand
I
for
am
atheism to
fine.
be normalized in these places.
But also too, you know, if that organically happens because there's a demand, it's like I don't want to sit there and silence it like so many other atheist organizations do.
Mm-hmm.
If atheism leads somebody down a logical pathway towards liberty, is that not a good thing? I mean, I found that many people who are liberty minded are very logical individuals because they came to those conclusions through logic
Yes.
and reason. And the same reason and logic that led me to where, you know, I'm a non-believer is the very same reason and logic that leads me to being in favor of limited government. Maybe it's different ideas, but it's the same principles of evidence-based.
Yes.
Where, like, you know, I get into debates with people at these things and they're like, well, you know, this is the one thing that the government should be involved in, is usually where it starts. And I say, well, tell me why. And usually you can't ever get to a good why. But I digress.
You did well. You did well. Question number one passed very well with flying colors. I think
I didn't know I was getting graded,
that is
Thomas.
a clip-worthy thing. So Max, if you're watching this later on, Max, that one question was just wonderful. But one thing I'll also remark on before we get to our second question there, like Matthew said, everybody, we are a collection of people in real professional backgrounds in positions of power in other places as well, who are trying to take the ideals that we fight for in AFL and apply it in other places. Places like local government, state government, the federal government, different political organizations and NGOs and nonprofits and think tanks. And if you're in certain professional backgrounds and you think that your industry or your area needs a little bit more of what we're doing here at AFL, go to atheistforliberty.org. The place to find that form to get more involved with us is the Get Involved tab, and there's a volunteer form. It's a Google form. Fill it out, guys, and we're going to be working to get back to you and to start getting people into volunteer committees. We already have people that are working around the clock to kind of grow AFL and make this great. We listen to your ideas all the time, not only in the comments here, but on Discord.
That's some great framing there, Thomas. What you're really trying to say is people working around the clock means Matthew does a lot of his work between 10 p.m. and 3 o'clock in the morning, which technically means that we're working around the clock.
but this actually proves my point here. Like I was mentioning earlier as well, people have seen Thomas Sheedy with the flag, ranting about atheism and stuff with these on these shows, and we have our comms people clip them out, and that's what people sometimes think of AFL as. People need to realize we have amazing people that are working behind the scenes to keep everything functional. It's me calling Matthew and me calling other people, sometimes on their cell phones, sometimes abruptly, being like, hey, we got this situation here. We got this situation there. We need to act on this, act on that. We need to grow our comms here. We need more media attention here. There's so much that we're doing that's amazing, but there's also quite a bit that we're lacking in. And it's because we have an amazing team, but right now, even a limited team of professionals in certain leadership positions, volunteering their time to make this organization succeed, which means we need more of you to help. And we definitely would appreciate it. And you'd be working under an amazing person here like Matthew Hebb, amazing people like Matthew Hebb, our vice president. There's a reason why I made the decision very recently to make Matthew here our vice president. He does a great job, but he can't do it alone. I can't do it alone. We can't do it alone.
Well, I also find it funny that there are two things. You said amazing people. I didn't know I was more than one person.
Well, it's 2023, so
number two, I know that this merch store idea, which we would love to do, by the way, guys, we're still working in the background, hoping to have that. But my point is, if we get that merch store going, I want to get I want to find somebody to do like a wind up Thomas toy. Because when you get Thomas going, it's anyway. What else you got for me? You said you had questions.
Actually, yes.
Here's the answer.
So, guys, as you know, we have the three big questions that I ask, and we follow by Q&A. So, that's how conferences run. And so, as well, Matthew, you became a fan of Atheist Liberty because of our work to integrate secular advocacy on the right. You went into your background, with me several times in private on your background in politics, throughout North Carolina, throughout Idaho, and everything. And when we got to really know each other, you came at it from a point of frustration with how things are currently in this country. What are your biggest frustrations right now as to where certain people in politics lack, maybe where the right, what the right lacks, but just everything you see around, what is lacking right now with people's understanding about atheism, and what should people, liberty-loving people, understand about atheist advocacy, or what they should expect when we walk in the door?
Well, I think that in terms of what should they expect us to be doing as atheist activists as they come into our organization? Is that kind of what you're asking in a nutshell?
Kind of that, and just also your frustrations as to what America is not doing right when it comes to understanding this issue.
Okay, so I think that the problem is there has become a bifurcation in society that you're either non-religious and progressive liberal, or you are religious and conservative right. And the bottom line is a 90% of Americans are neither of those things. They don't fall into one of the categories. And so one of the things that I hope that AFL is able to do, and one of the things that I'm hoping I'm able to do in terms of the political discourse and also this organization, is trying to create places for people who don't feel like they fit in. Those people that are a little bit outside the puzzle piece, so to speak. For example, I am I'm speaking for myself, by the way, as an officer of AFL, we're a nonpartisan organization. And by the way, that is not just something we say. We have people that are literally across the political spectrum in our organization. That being said, I am personally a Republican, but I'm also an atheist. I'm also pro-choice. Anybody who knows me knows that. I don't feel, and a lot of times what happens is, you find yourself feeling very politically homeless, which is why we came up with the title for the stream. And you know what? There was a long time where I would try and get where I would always be worried about fitting in, and that if I was working in politics, that I couldn't be this. That doesn't mean I can't represent somebody I disagree with on some things. Number one. Number two, we have to start owning who we are if we don't fit those forms. Because if we don't own who we are as we try to fit those forms, then no one will.
Right.
If you're on the right and you're not religious, you need to be that, and you need to openly be that. And that doesn't mean you need to be belligerent, but you should say who you are. It also goes down to if you're on the left and you happen to be somebody who's, pro-life and religious or something like that. I don't care who you are. The principle stands. You should be saying who you are, because you shouldn't be expecting yourself to fall, and don't allow this perceived majority to crush you. Because here's what you find out. The more and more you do it, the easier it gets. But secondarily, and this is the most important thing, I mean, look, this has to do with AFL, but it doesn't have to do with AFL, okay? AFL gives a home for folks like this. Yes, okay? But AFL isn't the only place people like this operate. And the thing is you start seeing things like Twitter, and you think Twitter is the real world. Twitter is not the real world. Trolls are not the real world. The internet is not the real world. The people complaining at you in Facebook's comments are not in the real world. There are many things that we all perceive as being the real world in this digital day and age, but simply are not the case. And one of the things I try to remember to tell people is that it's like most people are like you. They might not necessarily be an atheist. Okay, Thomas, I'll use you. It's like they may not be an atheist, who's involved with Republican stuff. Okay. But they are not fitting into the mold. They're a Republican who doesn't I'm just using an example. Hold on one second here.
This is my problem when it comes to the streams. I get these.
I've been operating in a new space for the computer, and there were notifications for Facebook, and there's a chat that's blowing up that I'm not even in. But anyway, so the point is that you're always going to find people who don't fit the mold, and you have to be willing to be your own version of not fitting the mold. Like I said, I don't care what way you don't, but be proud of it so that other people say, oh, wait, I don't agree either. Maybe I don't agree the same way or disagree the same way, but I don't agree either. Feel safer. And then suddenly we can start having a dialogue where 80% of people instead of 20% of people are driving it.
Right.
And that's the key to a lot of things, is that you have to start thinking about. I'll give an example. Have you ever worked in customer service, Thomas?
Indeed, I have.
All right. So in customer service, something you learn very quickly. I used to own a coffee shop. I worked at a Burger King. And one of the other things, this is another thing that happens, is you get involved in politics and you find out everybody's out of touch. Whether you're on the right or the left, you find out that if they're on the right, a lot of them haven't worked in these types of job environments. If they're on the left, they've never held a gun. You find out all these things where people just don't have connection. Number one, if you can create that connection for somebody, take personal responsibility and do it. That's just a personal thing of mine. But one of the things you learn in customer service is if somebody's happy, they'll almost never say anything.
Right.
If somebody's angry, they will almost always and invariably say something. So one thing I encourage people to do is when you go on a congressman's tweet, or I'll use a better example. When you go on a congressman's Facebook post or something like that, and you see all these people saying, well, you should rot in hell. I hate you. You and your whole family are smell bad. Whatever they're saying on there. One of the things I learned very quickly is look up the likes, because there may be 100 comments of just constantly trash talking, but you'd be surprised. A lot of times there's 4 and 6 and 800, 1,000 likes. those people aren't going to get involved in a comment war, nor should you most of the time, by the way. I would also point that out. Now, kind of pulling this back a little bit towards AFL. We have these Sunday night discussions. If you're not a member and you're listening to this, honestly, the most valuable thing about our organization, in my opinion, is the Sunday night discussions that we have, where it is a real discussion about some topic, sometimes serious, sometimes not. Jenny's been running them for a while, who's amazing. And the thing is these discussions let people be themselves. And I'm telling you, we have some people in there that I have very substantial disagreements with, but I don't feel threatened by them because they're not in there to, we have good members, and most of them, they really just want a place where they can talk and they can be heard, and they're willing to listen to other people as a result. And we have some quality conversation. Now, sometimes, and I'm guilty of it too, we'll get off the rails, but we get off the rails because we're also friends. Right. And sometimes we'll get into these weird, some of the conversations we've gotten into, like, we'll talk about everything from food to, amusement parks, roller coaster. Literally, if you name it, it's probably come up at some point.
And it'll be discussed till like 2 or 3 a.m.
But the point I'm making is that a lot of these conversations do start with serious topics, and people are able to say, all right, this is what I think about this. And as long as we keep it, now we expect people to keep it respectful and constructive. And one thing I will say is that we're not in the business of defending our atheism or people defending what they believe or defending that they're a limited government person. That's not the home for that. But I'm saying if you do fall into these categories and you feel like you're without a tribe, we exist for this. So if you become a member, you can have a safe place to have a dialogue, a place to actually also, and then I'll let you get into another question here, but like one of the other really valuable things is being able to use this therapeutically. And this is going to sound a little corny if you've not been in one, but you got to trust me that this is actually one of the things that's really important about it.
It
is therapeutic for people to be able to say, oh my God, this person just said this horrible thing to me. Or like, I was just trying to participate in this event and somebody said this or did this, or why is it I just have to get berated by my parents all the time about the fact that, I don't do this, or, I'm at work and they're all wanting to do this, thing that I have a really big disagreement with. Whatever it is, it's a place for people to have community, to chat about these things in a meaningful and appropriate way in an environment with people that have faced similar challenges. Maybe not the same challenges. Like, I can't imagine what some of the stories I've heard in our chats. Like, I can't imagine being in those circumstances.
Yeah.
But I share a lot of values with people in there, and I've been through my own garbage, and I'm able to try and relate based on that. And that is where AFL can really step in and make those 80% of people that I'm talking about from earlier, the ones that are the square pegs in the round hole, so to speak, of society, feel a little bit more at home, feel a little bit more like, hey, it's cool to be weird. We're a bunch of weirdos. We're all different types of weirdos. But basically, if you're listening to this podcast or you're listening to this stream, you're a weirdo. I mean, literally, you're listening to an Atheist for Liberty stream. Like, let's be real here. You're already outside the norm, but that's okay because you really actually aren't outside the norm. And that's what you don't realize is what I'm here to tell you is you're more normal than you think because we're all mad here.
Anyway. What a great advertisement. AFL, we're all mad here. Join the Discord and don't think we're nuts. But it is so, I have learned more about just this, not only the secular community, but I've learned more about just the real world through just listening to people's very interesting experiences in Discord, and they are super duper fun. So we got the Sunday night discussions, but we also do game nights on Wednesday nights, and we do a wide variety of other events. Like Matthew, for instance, hosted a debate watch party.
Another one's coming up in September on the 20. Actually, since you brought it up, I was going to promote this anyway. If you have to be a member to participate, and this is a great opportunity if you aren't, and if you are a member, put this on your calendar. The night of September 27th That is a Wednesday. That night will be the second GOP debate. I have said this is a nonpartisan initiative, so if the Libertarians have a debate, we're going to do that. If Joe Biden is actually willing to debate either of his opponents, we'll do that too.
Yes.
But continue, Thomas.
And we go over it from a secular point of view. We get into the weeds of religion. We get into the weed of, if there are any questions that directly relate to religion or public policy involving religion in some regard, we do talk about that quite a bit. So for anybody who's looking for, non-biased perspectives on the presidential debates, that aren't looking to make a buck, that aren't looking to just, purport some political
I'll
narrative.
take money if you want. Seriously, we have a donations page on Atheists. I'm just messing with you, dude.
Well, hey, we'll take it, and it's getting doubled. It's getting doubled, guys.
Don't make this a real pitch. I was joking with you.
No, I'll do it. I'll keep stating it.
Of course you will. You're a hustler.
Hey, Dave, look, we're doing this.
You're a hustler. But we also have. Don't forget, we have other things that we do that are outside of these things. Like we have a Facebook group that's for our members.
Mm-hmm.
Our Discord server itself, where these chats take place, also has lots of posts in it.
We're doing in-person get-togethers.
Conferences. There's been meetups in New York and in Texas. There's soon to be some more coming. Stay tuned for that. Thomas is going to be out there doing this campus tour shortly. That's going to be cool. I'm probably going to have to tag along with you for at least one of those.
Hey, you know what? Given the amount of things on my to-do list and given the amount of clutter that's on my Asana, it'd be great to have you.
Don't get me wrong. I did campus work for a leadership institute once upon a time ago.
So just like every
I was
conservative activist.
It's a funny story. I was handing out cards with Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan with the word yes, and Michael Moore and Fidel Castro with the word no. And this guy comes up in an Irish Republican Army shirt and starts shouting at me and calling me a fascist. Now, mind you, this is in 2006, 7, somewhere in there. This is like before everybody was calling everybody a fascist, so it was pretty funny.
Right.
And, he shouted at me for a while and ran off. And then this really nice young woman comes up to me and she starts asking me a bunch of questions. She signs up and she's like kind of interested. She's like, "Ooh, living in government, I kind of like this. I want to do a newspaper." Oh, maybe. I said, "Yeah, we're trying to start student groups and newspapers." And she's like, "Oh, this is really cool." So she's signing up. All of a sudden I hear in the background from across the quad, babe, he's a fascist." It was the dude's girlfriend trying to sign up at my table. And I was like, she's like, I probably need to go. And I said, you probably need a new boyfriend.
Hopefully she took your advice.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, given the guy's an IRA activist, I don't think he was an
IRA activist any more than half the people that are walking around with Che Guevara shirts know anything about who that was.
Right.
So,
oh my God! Well, we got a lot of awesome Q&A.
Well, I can't see any of them, so
I will pop those open in just a moment for us to read out and answer. But there are a few questions that actually relate to the last question I have to ask you. You are the VP of AFL. I'm president. I help set the narrative in many regards, but as president, and whenever you're the person at the top of something, there are always blind spots. Sometimes you can see things differently than others do within your own organization, within your own staff, within your own cabinet. Because many of the private meetings we had on future AFL projects and things like that, where do you see Atheists for Liberty going, and what are your biggest hopes and dreams that you have for future AFL successes?
Hopes and dreams? You mean me in the Oval Office? No, I'm just kidding. I had to do it.
Who was next to you when you sat in that chair?
I have many hopes and dreams for the organization. I'd like us to expand a lot. That's a big thing for me. I'd like to see us get into all, I want a state director for all 50 states, but I want, and look, and also if you're out there in a state that we don't have a state director, you can see them on our website. The amount of work that's involved with that can vary, and we base that off of the volunteer that we're working with. So don't be afraid if you want to help. We can work with you based on your terms, not just ours. But back to what I'd like to see. One of the things I'd like to see is I'd like to see us doing, I mean, regardless of the fiscal components of what we are capable of doing, I'd like to see us doing things like the FFRF has done in the past, like actually making sure that separation of church and state is enforced legally. Right. Now, that's a whole nother animal. There's a whole lot of money involved with that, and that could be many years off, but it's something I'd love to see us do, because I'd love to see us do it from an honest broker of a true free speech perspective. Now, granted, they do a lot of good work still, but, you're starting, the woke creeps into everything. And that's one of the things that, if you want to talk about a hope and dream, is that we will perpetually and forever keep this out of this organization. I'll say this as your vice president, but also as a member. The day that if this organization ever goes woke, you'll know, because I won't be a member of it anymore. That being said, I'd like to see us do. I want us to increase our types of diversity of programming. We've discussed some options and some ideas for different types of community. I want to personally, I would like to build up this stream so that there's more and more, big names on it. But also, too, we've talked about doing some other stream type programming. We'd really like to do that. And then, of course, probably one of my greatest hopes, and this is something I'd really like to see at least tried in the next 24 months, we'll call it. I'd really like there to be a conference for AFL. So that's where I'm hoping. Oh, and I hope that, we can continue to build people who want to be a part of this. And actually, one of the questions I did see in the live chat that I actually want to answer, if I can pick one up.
I'll showcase it if you want to.
Am I allowed to pick one up? So down here, I think it was Jenny asked this. She asked something about being more specific about the help that we need. Yes. Can you go into more detail about what kinds of volunteer work needs to be done? Yes, I can, actually. So one of the biggest tasks that we have as an organization, I'll try and pop myself above the little, anyway. I always am amused, I always watch these streams, and I'm like, does anybody ever want to interact with the box where they
I put it on for 2 seconds, and then because
point at my own name, it's like, that's me.
Yeah.
Anyway. I'm trying to keep it entertaining, Thomas. I may be failing miserably, but I'm trying.
You're not. I'm like
my point is
sometimes. So
one of the biggest things we need is comms. The Carolina and Max do amazing work with our comms team, but you have to understand, comms for a national organization like Atheists for Liberty, and we are a national organization. Let me be very clear: we're borderline an international organization at this point because of how many members we have outside the country, but we need help with comms. What does that mean? It means that my team of comms people and Thomas's team of comms people could use people who can, write good posts, make graphics, develop press releases, all sorts of things like that. From an operations standpoint, I definitely can utilize people who can help booking events, who can help the logistics of attending conferences, making sure we have materials, making sure things are getting shipped and ordered. I probably have a bottomless pit of organizational tasks to do with our old data that literally, if you're somebody who just likes to sit there and mess around with organizing things, Thomas could probably put you to work.
Oh, yeah.
Understand that working with Thomas is a little bit like working with a squirrel. I mean that in all the most best ways possible, sir. But because he's got so much energy, it's like he's constantly throwing ideas down on paper, but somebody's got to organize them.
Yeah. That's why I have to.
Another thing I would say is volunteers that can physically attend conferences, especially if they can help cover some of their expenses being there. We try to meet where we can on it, but honestly, right now we're not really at the fiscal place where we can pay for much of that. We can usually get you a ticket if you can put in the time. But, if you're interested in attending a conference with us, we have limited spaces available. But if you're interested, you should reach out to us, especially if you have experience working a table before. And you also have any experience with speaking the rhetoric of having to be able to, defend the concept of separation of church and state, etc. So that's some of the main areas. If you have any questions or there's something that you I actually know how to do this. Oh, writing. We're always looking for extra people to write things for our newsletter.
Editorial
Oh,
board.
web. Also, not a ton needed right this moment, but at some point, people who could do things that on the website. There's a bottomless pit, like I said. But if that's something that has come to your mind, please reach out to me or Thomas, or me and Thomas is probably the best. Our email addresses are extremely complicated. They're our first dot our last name at atheistforliberty.org. So
yes,
anyway.
Thomas.Sheedy or Matthew.Hebb, or you could also email info@atheistforliberty.org.
And then we both get it.
It gets forwarded to us too. So
all right, I'll let you pick all the rest of the questions. I just saw that one. I was like, oh, that's something I want to do.
Right to the best ones. But I'm glad this has been a great first half discussion here, Matthew. So I really appreciate that. I always, obviously I'm very selfish for this, but I always like the AFL related discussions that we have on these streams, because especially as our members see it, they get a little bit more insight as to what's going on within the confines of AFL and the meetings that we have. And I want more people to see not only some of our successes, but some of our own frustrations, so things can be alleviated, so people can volunteer their help, so people can make not only our lives, but the life and success of AFL easier and better. So there we go for that. So I'm going to go ahead and showcase questions and comments here. So we got Mars coming in with a comment saying 2 years. Has it been that long already? Yeah. So in October, it's going to be 2 years since we have started the streaming series with Michael Shermer as our first guest. This is episode 33, and we're going to be doing this every Tuesday now. We were very busy in August, but from May to August, we were very good at keeping this going every single Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and we are continuing that. Summer's over. Now it's time to get to work. So we're doing that very well, and I'm very happy that we have Matthew here as somebody who's helping us kick that off. We got Frank asking, the advocating for policies like Marcy's Law can be contentious. What is the most significant opposition you faced in your advocacy work, and how do you address it?
So I'll answer that broadly as opposed to specifically. Like if somebody actually wants to hear specifically, I can get into it. Look, we've had a couple people that are, it's crime victims' rights. So there's some people who want to decriminalize crime. So obviously you're going to run into those types from like the wreckage that was once known as the ACLU. Broadly, I would say the best answer to that is ignorance. The biggest enemy of most good reform is ignorance. Literally, we got stuck in one particular state because an elected representative who was critical and necessary to pass the legislation literally did not understand it.
Yes.
And I tried every way. I had people who were very, we tried every approach to explain it to this man. And he says, I still don't get it. And I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you. We also, sometimes it's, there was an instance where an organization wanted to make some money for their donors, like get some donations in. And so they made up a fear about it and used it as a fundraising tool. They knew it wasn't true, but when you've got a pretty good sized mouthpiece of an organization that raises a fair amount of cash, you can put some bad press out there. That being said, we run into challenges, but ultimately we've been pretty successful. We were successful in amending the state constitution. North Carolina was the state director for that operation. We're making great progress here in Idaho. And I think it's important to end that question on a positive note, which is, well over half the United States has those crime victims' rights protections or better. It's successfully passed in places like Ohio and Florida and California and Oklahoma and North Carolina and, Kentucky, very diverse states all over. Illinois. Like these aren't like red states. They're not blue states. They're just states. So.
Very good answer to that. We don't really talk too much about everything that you do in Idaho, but you literally you wear a lot of different badges on your sleeve, and you do it very well. So I'm looking at your background right now. There's a reason why you don't have much wall space. That's due to
the thing is, I have a firm belief, and this is something that I will say to anyone who will listen. I believe it is every intelligent person on this earth's incumbent responsibility to change the world for the better, make it a better place than they found it. I don't care how you do that. I don't care if it's picking up trash, being a part of an organization that you care about, running for office, or fixing air conditioners. You got to make the world a better place than you found it, and try to be a decent human being, because that's one of the biggest misconceptions about atheists, is that atheists don't have like this moral code. They don't think about their fellow man. And I would argue that, well, when you don't believe that there's an afterlife, the only legacy you leave on this earth is your deeds and what you've actually done, so that people, the memory of you is the only way in which you have an afterlife. I've said this on a couple of our streams. And as a result of that, I fail sometimes, but I try every single day to be the kind of person that I want everybody else to be. And not trying to get corny here or sidetracked, but I think it's extremely important that as atheists that we talk about that humanist aspect of things. Humanism is they're trying on the right, and I'll call it the right all day long, despite the fact that I work with them. They're trying to turn humanist into a dirty word.
Right. Like it's the
And
80s coming all back again, those evil secular humanists.
It's not they try to say, oh, they view human as God. I'm like, no, I don't view anything as God. What I do care about, however, is humanity. And I think that's something that can be that is shared by the vast majority of our membership, because I know a lot of them. And so back to a question that was asked earlier, what is one of my hopes that we can do with AFL in the future? One of the things actually I discussed with a few of our members, and most notably Jenny, I had some conversations about this with. I'd like us to get into some charity work. I'd like to get us into some things where we're doing some good in the world and demonstrating that atheists care. It's not a matter, you don't have to have God to be good, as they say, anyway.
I don't agree with Jordan Peterson on everything. I know just within a few of these streams alone, and I did a video for the channel here on Michaela Peterson and things I disagree with her on pertaining to religion. But I'm really into like a lot of people now on YouTube, the kind of self-help community on like always how to make your life better, how to always improve your life.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that Peterson said that I definitely agree with is that life is suffering, and that every day you should just do little bits of things to improve yourself on a daily basis to alleviate suffering for other people in the world. And if more people do that, not only will you leave a legacy for yourself, that memory, but the world will be a better place when you leave it.
I don't disagree with that philosophy entirely. I will say that Peterson is a very well-intentioned individual. And I think some of the stuff he says on that, look, there are a lot of people out there that haven't heard some of these basic principles. And if Peterson can wake some young men, young women up to the idea that these are some ideas that they need to consider, I'm here for it. But
just leave out the atheism bashing and the we have to have a religion.
Just because it's a 5-syllable word doesn't mean you're using it correctly. Anyway, go on.
Exactly. But guys, really appreciate the questions. We are continuing to state them here. So we got Jenny saying, there are so many woke religious people. I don't understand how we need religion to not be woke is a valid point for anyone with eyes. And I'm actually just going to continue that because Ruin of the Gods actually just responded to what Jenny said too, but saying, especially since wokeism is just Christianity's great-grandchild, the exact same ethical preconceptions serve as the basis of both forms of mind virus. Good rants, guys.
See, the thing is that I think that there's a kind of a funny issue there. Okay, we'll start off on the first front of that is you have these churches that are like, they have their little fancy sans serif font, look like they're a tech company, but it's really just a church that's in like a shutdown Shoney's, but they have like the banners out front, and then they just kind of talk. They don't really they do this like weird Christian light thing. And then as a result of that, they start infusing, these progressive notions to try to get, butts in the seats, so to speak. And I think that's the worst of both worlds. It's kind of like when I meet somebody who's fiscally liberal and socially conservative. I'm like, wow, you couldn't be further than than me. But that being said, I mean, to Jenny's point, though, I think is very correct, and the fact that there is a lot of wokeism in Christianity, but not just in a traditional way where it's like we're going to respect the LGBTQAIP question mark upside down sign agenda. Like, and I'm as much of, by the way, I have been in favor of equal rights for the LGBT community way before it was like this hip topic. It's just that what they've done is they've turned it into a joke.
Right.
Because nothing is wrong, everything is right, and you can be whatever you want to be every 5 minutes. The problem is that Christianity's response to that has been, no, you won't have that kind of wokeness. We'll give you a different kind.
Mm-hmm.
That you're going to, there's a reason that people are calling wokeness the new religion, and it's because there is a doctrine to it. There's a doctrine to Christianity, and there's a doctrine to wokeism. And that is, these are the rules. You do not break them. And if you break them, the Christians will cast you to hell. The woke people, will cancel you or what have you. But essentially, it's the same principle.
Yeah.
You are believing something outside. You're believing something that is arbitrary outside of yourself. And what's happened is Christianity has taken on some of these woke ideas, and so you've got two different problems. One, you've got Christians that behave like woke people, even though they're not woke by policy. And then you have the ones that are trying to adopt it so that they can literally use God to enforce woke principle. I don't understand it personally. It all sounds like nonsense to me. But the truth of the matter is I think it's all dangerous, because when you start acting as though there is an external guidebook to your morality instead of what you know is right and wrong, you're always in for disaster.
Right.
Most of us, most normal people, know the difference between right and wrong. But you see, the thing is that everybody's always looking for some way to not be to blame. I'm this special category of person. I'm not to blame. I'm the victim. I'm a Christian. I'm persecuted. I'm the victim. I live in this horrible, sinful world. Or I live in this, dark, hate-filled place where there's Panzer tanks running down the street. None of this is true. None of this is true. You all live, if you're in America, you are living in the freest society in the history of mankind. Mm-hmm. You all have it pretty good. Whether you're woke or you're Christian, you have it pretty damn good because you're allowed to be woke or Christian.
Yeah.
The thing is both of those groups are really ready to sell that freedom and that liberty up the river, given any opportunity, because they want someone to validate them at the top, to tell them you're right and everyone else is wrong, and we're going to make sure they listen. And the thing is the second you start wanting people to enforce your ideology, whether it's wokeism or Christianity, on the rest of the world, that is when you, A, no longer believe in liberty, but B, you will give away your own, and soon enough, you'll be under the boot.
Yes. I worry about what's going to happen in the next 10, 20 years in that regard. I feel like it's 100 years ago. Repeating
I do and I don't. I do and I don't. Part of me thinks that, we're heading towards this horrible, dark place, that bad things are going to happen. But part of me also thinks that, there's starting to be cracks in this. There's a chance people actually wake up. We can't soldier on in liberty or atheism if we literally sit here and get completely hopeless.
That's why we wake up every day.
I'm not going to call it out, but the people who I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. I just went to a conference recently, and all the people who were really reasonable and high quality and dedicated were the ones who won the day, not the charlatans. And that's not to suggest, if you're listening to me, that I think everybody on one side is one thing or the other. So don't worry about that. I'm not lumping everyone together, but I'm saying the loud, obnoxious voices that were just trying to pander and they were just trying to be noise, they lost. And they lost by a lot. But the thing is what you got to realize is most people are actually pretty tired of this stuff. Mm-hmm. So while there's a danger of World War III, I think that's legitimate, there's also a real pathway out of this.
Yeah.
if we stick together and we keep talking to people and we keep trying to build the dialogue. So be it.
Long pause. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's why, you know, it's why I wake up every single day. It's why we keep doing what we're doing. You know, life is always a risk, but the good news is that the majority of sane, normal people are on our side. And we got to keep saying it.
And if they're not on our side, they appreciate and value our viewpoint because they share it. Because, look, let me be clear, so that this isn't taken out of context. Most of the Christians I know are 100% cool with me existing and me not believing. They're not trying to convince me. And we're talking some very conservative Christian. This isn't most people. This isn't most Christians. Most Christians want people like me to be able to exist in their free society.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
it's not like I'm sitting here saying, oh, Christians are bad. I don't think that faith being used as a policy concept is a positive thing, but that's that. I have reasons.
We can agree on that one point. You know, we don't have to agree on every single topic on the face of the earth. I don't want a state atheist country.
I don't want to state anything country when it comes to not trying to sound like. Oh, I'm not trying to sound like anti-government here. I'm simply saying it's like I want a government that protects everyone and privileges no one.
Yeah. Good conclusion to that one. We got Snorgon of Bocard saying AFL represent. Thank you very much. Appreciate you for being a loyal viewer. I always see your comments there.
I love this. I love this this avatar you have here, dude.
Yeah, he's got it's Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, as a it's a sea animal. Oh, here we go. So we got Frank asking, in previous streams, Thomas rarely challenged guests with views differing from AFL's ideals. Will future segments debate guests instead of promoting?
Oh, Frank, I haven't had a chance to talk to Thomas about this yet. We had
So,
to talk the other night about this.
And Matthew, I have not had a chance to actually tell you yet. There are people that have been approaching me about wanting debates to happen on the AFL channel here in this streaming series. And we have a staff member who has actually pitched me on doing a debate against a woke atheist. And I'm in talks with him, and we're going to review the content. We're going to review the ideas. But if all looks well, we're thinking sometime in October doing that. I've always been open to the idea of doing debates on this channel. I don't want to make it where we only talk to people we agree with, but simultaneously promoting people that we support in their content is a good thing too, guys.
I know you are, but I will point this out. There's kind of a broader point that Frank's trying to get at that we did discuss the other night, and I think it's great for this stream to discuss is, we have a lot of great people that are on our board of advisors and atheist thinkers and or political people. What the question was that was brought up, and one that I'll publicly state my opinion on here.
Oh, please. I know exactly what you're going to say.
Is that I think that I would love to see a greater and greater diversity of things, but that also means that when we have things on here, we're going to have to challenge people and also maybe disagree. Like, it's okay to disagree. It's also okay to disagree with somebody you like most of the time. But it's also okay to have somebody you disagree with a fair amount if they're willing to come on and have a real dialogue, if you're able to challenge them throughout.
That's right. Creates good content too, helps promote the channel and the brand, and shows that we're not dogmatic and only think one way.
Well, we're not dogmatic. And the thing is, it's like I want us to be able to have people on all sorts of ideological viewpoints. But if one of them starts talking against liberty or against secularism, then we should challenge them. It's pretty simple.
Absolutely.
If
we haven't had too many adversaries about on the channel yet, but I bet we will.
But if we have somebody on here who's claims to be liberty minded and they're not, then or they say something that's patently opposed to liberty, then we need to say, well, how does that compute, dude? Explain yourself. We don't have to be mean, but say okay, defend that point to us.
Yeah, I think it's very valid. And people, just from a marketing point of view too, people really do appreciate that content. More and more debate content has been blowing up just in all aspects of the culture wars. People like, seeing one own the other. And we don't have to do that here, but at least showing that, we're just not thinking in one direction. I think it's going to go a long way in people showing, and it's the truth. It's God's honest truth, that we really do want to have a diversity of thought on here. Just when we bring on certain people, especially people that have limited amounts of time, we want to make sure we hit the topics that work
Ooh,
best
I
for
want
the
to respond to one comment Dan said on here. Sorry, I was looking at some of the comments. He made a comment here. It says, I don't buy that every Republican office holder, who claims to be religious really believes. I think many just say they believe just to fit in and get elected as a Republican. Well, no, it is physically impossible I wouldn't say that. It is physically impossible to win a primary if this comes up and you're not somebody who's religious. Now, it's happened. We actually know the person. One state senator that exists that was able to get elected, but generally speaking, no, it's because they understand the political reality. So to answer your question a little bit more directly, I've had enough conversations with office holders that, they're the first people to say, some religious statement at the end of their speech, but then you talk to them and they're like, yeah, I mean, it's just, it's just not a big deal to me. Like, I mean, have I had anybody like out to me that they're like, oh, I'm atheist or I'm not religious? One very cool person, state rep. I'm not going to say who it was or where it was, but they told me like, yeah, actually, this just isn't me, but I also know that I can do more good. Now, is that honest? No. Would they get elected again? No. So that being said, I mean, it's a sad state of affairs, but I would say what's pretty common is I've had a lot of them tell me, like, I've had a non-insignificant number of them tell me, like, I don't remember the last time I went to church. I mean, I guess I believe in God. Like, you get statements like that, that's common.
Gotcha. Going to keep going through the questions here. We got quite a lot, guys. Really appreciate it. I'll make a little tiny announcement here. So if you guys like watching everything you're seeing here, guys, just hit the subscribe button down on the bottom. We're coming out with more video content every single week. And with you being subscribed and with you hitting the notification bell to see more content, you'll be the first people to see what we got in store. And not to mention, too, this is another thing that takes 1 second. Like the video. Like this full stream and like the clips that you're seeing here too, that just in case me saying what I'm saying now gets clipped out too. It really helps. It takes 2 seconds. And it shows the YouTube algorithm that this is the kind of stuff that you want to see. So it really means a lot to me. It means a lot to the entire comms team at AFL by doing just that. On to more questions and comments here. We got us saying campus tours are really good. It's fun and you have good conversations. That's why we're going to be going forward with that. I'm working with plenty of other people on the operations team, not only the operations leadership, but other people that want to, have me go to certain campuses here and there. Already speaking to different people when it comes to that. So we're already getting quite on it. Let me just see real quick as well. Oh my God, they're still piling through. The thing is with StreamYard, guys, is like in the comments.
I don't know what happened. Frank, I take it there's some sort of error. I don't know what occurred, but we'll get to the bottom of it after.
Yeah, we're going to fix that. I DM'd Frank as you were answering one of the questions just to show him that, like, I don't know what happened. We'll work on that after this. But I can do that on his AFL account.
I'm glad you're here, dude.
Very glad you're here, Frank. Good questions. Oh my God. Let me see. There's so many people that are okay. Here we go. We got rolling. Hi, rolling. We got rolling saying they don't want to be woke religious people. If they gaslight enough people into thinking wokeness is caused by godlessness, they can have an excuse to say that religion is still relevant. I think some of it is a marketing thing.
I think that's a fair statement. Yeah. Like, I just think that's a fair statement. I mean, I think that, the broader debate is pretty complex, but I'd say that if somebody feels like they can leverage one for their own benefit of gaining supporters, it definitely seems to be a movement right now. Yep. I've been seeing that even amongst people that have been like pretty secular in the past, starting to be like, well, I guess if you religious folks will help us fight the woke, that, that's more, what? That's nonsense to me. Two wrongs don't make a right. I'm not saying that the woke stuff isn't dangerous. It's absolutely dangerous. And it is a mind virus, as everybody says. I have no issue with that. But so is theocracy. So is the religiosity in an aggressive, muscular Christianity, as they say. Like, that stuff is dangerous.
Like, Gad said has Cold Wokeness and Mind Virus. That's based on one of his best-selling books. Where did he get all that? A lot of that stuff from? He got it because he was involved in atheist stuff, a decade ago. It all connects.
Yeah.
Atheist libertarian here. I'm also politically homeless. Hey, glad to have you. Be one of our regular subscribers and hit that notification bell because we want to make sure you can see more good content. And we read the comments on all the YouTube videos that come out too.
If you're still watching and you're politically homeless, you found your camp. And if you haven't joined, do so.
Yeah. atheistforliberty.org, guys. Let me see here. I need to have somebody in the background again. I used to have somebody in the background to point out the comments here on StreamYard because it just takes a second. He does call out many atheists for thinking that pure rationality is sufficient. I'm assuming he's talking about Peterson. He says Peterson says that enlightenment needs some element of mystery. Michaela Peterson should have you on her podcast. Hey, I agree. If Michaela Peterson wants to have me on, I am open to it. Will it happen? We'll see. I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed to a lot of these people. I like a lot of these people when it comes to a lot of other culture war things.
Yeah. So. Ruin, I really like what you said there.
What did Ruin say about Marxism?
No, we need muscular atheism. And he's correct. But I at the same time, I don't want us to become belligerent. And this is the caution I'll give to everybody in here, because I know we have a lot of very frustrated and upset people here. And I've said some things that I'm sure if they're clipped, someone's going to have a field day with. Old Hebb said this. At some point or other, I had to learn a very valuable lesson, and that was that I couldn't appease everybody. All I could do is be me. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that is part of who I am is understanding that it is incredibly important that we do not take the follies of our enemies or our opposition, I prefer, because I think enemies causes polarization more, even if they act as though they are our enemies. They are our opposition. I think it's extremely important that we don't take all of their mistakes and can repeat them. I think it is important to learn from their tactics and utilize them. I think we need to be aggressive, and that's why I liked your comment so much, is I do think we need to be aggressive. But we need to take the high road, because you know what? There's so many people taking the low road right now. Anybody who takes the high road is going to be refreshing to the onlookers. And the onlookers are who you're really trying to convince, because you're not going to convince, we're not going to convince crazy theists most of the time. And although when they do deconvert, they deconvert really hard, I've noticed, which is fun. But the point is by and large, you're not going to convince a theist. You're not going to convince some person who believes government is the answer to everything, that liberty is correct. Most of the time you can't. Should you try? Sure. But do you know where your limits are? Yes. What you can do, though, is make principled, reasoned, confident, cited arguments to people, and hope that people who are looking on, who maybe haven't formed an opinion, will utilize the information that you are sharing to develop better ones.
Gotcha. No, it's very true. It's also very true that comments are building up more than ever before, which is a problem, guys. This is why we need more help, because you guys are just asking so many great questions and stating a bunch of great things. That's just hard to
we need some producer in the background that Thomas has doing this that just makes a snarky comment about every 40 minutes, but then the rest of it is just throwing comments up.
Yeah, like work. I'm just seeing so many of these comments get flooded here. Workout, shoot guns, train. Yes, thank you.
Well, there's a lot of great comments in here. Here's the point. There's a great place for this conversation to continue after this. And that is, when Discord. We go into our Discord chats on Sunday nights, I want to have this conversation continue. I would also point out that it's really important that we get people to watch the stream. Not for me, share a better episode, but go on and share a good episode with some friends. Autumn, to answer your question, it's both. Wokeism, okay, I'll rephrase. It's always dogmatism. Wokeism, I love your avatar. That's fantastic. dogmatism is always bad because you can be religious dogmatic, you can be woke dogmatic. Anybody who believes in anything without any question and basically just, follows it blindly like a zombie, it's a bad thing. Wokeism involves dogmatism, but dogmatism can relate to other things, I guess would be,
Yeah.
I think you can't have wokeism without dogmatism, but you can have dogmatism without wokeism. Does that I hope that answers your question. And yes, wokeism is distinctly Marxist in my opinion as well. And I think a lot of that is, some of this is, some of wokeism is designed to foment. So a lot of this is divine, so a lot of, I'll get into this very quickly because this is a longer topic than we have time for right now. But one of the things that, you learn, especially if you read some, political activist literature on the left, is that the idea here is to have a zero-sum game, like a no winners. It's kind of like you can never apologize enough. You can never make something right. You're always, it's kind of like this idea of, systemic, this, that, and the other thing. It's like, it's this constant flatulation of you've always done something wrong. There's no making it right. You can never give up your privilege. Your privilege is permanent. The thing is that the problem with that is it creates a zero winner situation. And when you create a zero winner situation, everybody and then you start creating victim Olympics. All of this is actually just designed to separate people, because when people are separated, it is easier to pit them against one another. And when you pit them against one another, you need somebody to be the arbiter, and that is the central government if you're a Marxist. So the idea is to create the division necessary and to dissolve the national, cohesiveness, the things that we do agree on, like that we may not agree on the fact that we're, we may not agree on faith or political party, but we agree on the fact that, we're Americans and we all love one another because we're in this together, even though we may not agree on much of anything. And the moment you can break that down, you created a situation where it is ripe for the destruction of not just liberty, but also, everything that's attached to it, including our rights.
Very good. Yeah. And the problem with wokeness, too, when it comes to all this, is there's no forgiveness or redemption. Because I like that commonality, too. That's only one thing I'll state about religion. In certain doctrines, you have forgiveness. So as long as you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, you're all good. All past sins are forgiven. Sometimes with wokeness, there's no path to being approved once again, because the moment you do one thing that upsets the hierarchy, you're done.
Well, that's the thing. It is a impossible standard, because here's the thing. You create an impossible standard so that there's always something to hold over everyone. This is the same reason I believe in limited government. Like, just as, and any of my truly libertarian folks in here will appreciate, I think the way I look at this is the whole reason we have tens of thousands of pages of law is not because these laws are all good. It's because you're always breaking one. And as long as you're always breaking one, that means that if somebody ever needs to take advantage of that to contain you, you've already broken the rules. You're already a criminal. So that's one of the reasons why I am opposed to all this extra legislation that so many people will provide. Feel-good legislation, things of that nature. Same reason. It's like like the concept of I've never agreed with the concept of hate crimes, for example. It's like, oh, well, you murdered somebody, but you murdered them because they're this category of person. I'm like, so it's like the murder of somebody who wasn't killed for that reason is less important. You created this law to make yourself feel better about things. It's like, I'm pretty sure if you murder somebody, unless it's in self-defense, you don't like them very much.
Yeah.
But the point is that you create these laws so people feel good about themselves. And maybe something like a hate crimes law, like, just aggravates a sentence for a violent criminal. We could get into that debate. That's fine. That's not my point. But you start creating laws for the purposes of making people feel better. You create laws that can be used as weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
And that's what's most dangerous about this kind of tyranny.
I think we need to keep this to where we're at. What do you think?
I'm only putting up one question because I'm getting tired myself.
Oh, I'm not tired. I don't want to have some stream that nobody wants to watch because they're like, oh, crap, these guys went on for how long?
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing. I always usually keep it to an hour and a half. But so I was just.
I could do a Rogan
the finishing remark on that. But we're gonna put up one more question. So the final question: has anyone seen Milo Yiannopoulos lately? He's become a gay conversion therapist with the same attitude, and we know what usually ends up happening to those therapists. So, funny comment there. I'll go.
The thing is that I would say this, and I think that he's got a lot of issues. There's a lot of things wrong with that guy, like, and I don't mean that in like a derogatory way. He's did some really profoundly dumb things, but at the same time, you can't almost feel but pity for what's going on there. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like being the byproduct of a broken political discourse and just being like all of that trash rolled up into one emotional state. And it's incredibly sad to watch. But it's not the only person it's happened to.
I'll go through a very brief history with him. So he worked for Breitbart, right? When the whole anti-woke kind of movement kind of started to really kick up steam, 2015, 16, 17. He said some controversial things on Drunken Peasants.
He said some stupid things.
Very silly things and controversial things on Drunken Peasants, and I believe another stream as well. He got fired from Breitbart, or he resigned from Breitbart in 2017. He went on doing censored TV with Gavin McInnes. There was some issue there internally. And then he went on to, like, all of a sudden converting to being straight.
Oh, I know. I was
extremely like religious, way more than he already was purporting to himself to be. Selling like Christian jewelry on like what it looked like to be public broadcast television. And then he started to support Kanye. To support Kanye West, now Ye for president.
What I'm saying is that it's the same thing that we're seeing in other places with other personalities.
Yeah.
It's mental illness on display. Like, and I'm not trying to be I actually have a very, like, I take that stuff very seriously. And I think that, you know, there's a needed compassion there, because, like, that doesn't mean that I think that this person needs to be given a spotlight anymore, mind you. I'm saying that it's sad to watch when somebody's clearly got some serious bad things going on in their head. And you know, that's one thing I would encourage all of you. We can maybe leave it on this note before Thomas does his pitch that he always does at the end of these things. Remember, when we're dealing with anything like that, whether it is somebody who has been brainwashed through, you know, the way they were brought up, or somebody who's got mental issues, or somebody who's kind of gone over to the extremes because they got taken in by a lie, whatever it is, it doesn't mean you accept it. It doesn't mean you don't fight it. It doesn't mean you don't correct it, but you do have to show some compassion. You have to show some love, because the thing is one of the biggest misconceptions out there about atheists is that we don't love one another, but we do. And I think it's extremely important for all of us as Atheists for Liberty, if you're a member, and whoever you are out there, it doesn't matter who you are, show compassion, try to take pause, and try to think of people as people, not just personalities. That's all I've got for you, Thomas. I'll let you do your closing nonsense that you do. And yes, you should listen to him. You should listen to him.
It's important nonsense, everybody. So listen, guys, if you appreciate everything that we are doing and really want to support us out more, so you have a Facebook account, go to facebook.com/atheistliberty and go ahead and like and follow us there. Become a member. Okay, everybody, at atheistforliberty.org. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. All contributions are tax deductible, and they're being doubled till the end of this year. We have a membership match started thanks to David Silverman, our advisory board chairman. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video, and hit the notification bell to see more content. Guys, liking the video takes 2 seconds. Same with following us on Twitter, now X, at Atheist Liberty, and also following us at Instagram at Atheists for Liberty. We really want to do more of what we can, again, to showcase some of these greatest minds and to continue our fight for free speech, free thinking, and freedom for all. So I'm going to end it there. Tune in next week at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all then. Matthew, thank you so much for coming on the show, Mr. Vice President. We're going to be having quite a few more talks this week and continuing our work.
Glad I could be a part of it.
Take care, everybody.